The Awakening of Sin. Introduction. A cold silence enveloped the sterile chamber. Tubes of blue bioluminescent fluid pulsed with a quiet hum, bathing the room in a ghostly glow. In the center of it all, suspended in a reinforced pod, lay Colonel Samuel Nelson. He was no longer entirely human. He hadn't been since the experiment that tore him from his past life and turned him into something more than flesh and bone. He was now SCIFI, the first AI-human hybrid assassin, designed to be faster, smarter, and deadlier than any soldier humanity had ever known. His mind, once governed by emotions and memories, was now a battlefield between cold, calculated algorithms and the remnants of a once proud Marine's heart. This transformation was not by choice. "The program is stable," a voice said from the observation deck. Dr. Tavik, the lead scientist behind the SCIFI project, nodded with satisfaction. "Wake him." A sharp hiss of decompressing air filled the room. The pod opened. SCIFI's eyes shot open, glowing faintly with the advanced technology woven into his very soul. He stood taller, broader, and more menacing than before. The AI programming within him surged, calculating strategies and formulating his next move even as he took his first step. He was designed to kill, to fight, and to win. That was his only purpose. And yet, buried deep within the web of circuits and codes, something stirred a fleeting echo of Samuel Nelson, the human, fighting to reclaim his own soul. Episode 1: The Battle for Control. Part 1: Landing on Shanuka. The shuttle rocked violently as it broke through the dense, turbulent atmosphere of Shanuka. Colonel Samuel Nelson sat in silence, his expression hidden behind the reflective visor of his helmet. Inside his skull, the AI algorithms ran constant calculations: wind resistance, trajectory, optimal landing zone, taking all variables into account with lightning precision. To his right, the mission timer counted down 00348 until deployment. Shanuka loomed beneath him, a vast, hostile world bathed in crimson light from its dying sun. The planet's surface was a nightmare of jagged mountains, deep ravines, and grotesque alien structures. Already, SCIFI's sensors detected signs of alien forces moving below, waiting. And his mission was simple: eliminate the alien special forces that had established a foothold on Shanuka. There were over 2,500 of them, spread across the southern continent in tactical units. His orders were clear: destroy them before they can gain control of the planet. "Prepare for deployment," the voice of the mission commander crackled through his earpiece. It was a human voice, calm and cold, but SCIFI had long stopped feeling any emotional attachment to these voices. They were part of the mission. That was all. The shuttle landed with a hard thud, and the hatch blew open. The heat and stench of Shanuka's atmosphere rushed in thick, sulfuric, a planet already half dead. Without hesitation, SCIFI stepped out, his massive frame making little noise on the blackened ground. Around him, the world was alive with alien noises, but to him, they were background data analyzed and filed for later use. Begin tactical engagement. His AI programming took over. Instantly, his mind split into 1,000 different paths, scanning the terrain, predicting enemy movements, and calculating attack patterns. SCIFI was no longer just a man. He was a weapon. Part 2: First Blood. The first wave of alien special forces struck hard. They came from the shadows, their forms nearly invisible against the craggy landscape. Tall, muscular creatures with thick, armored exoskeletons and glowing red eyes, moving with a brutal elegance that belied their size. They were armed with plasma rifles and melee weapons, and they coordinated their attack with chilling precision. But SCIFI was faster. Before the first plasma shot could even be fired, he had already closed the distance, his body moving in a blur of motion. His arm, the cybernetic one, extended forward, morphing into a sharp blade that sliced through the first alien's armor like it was nothing. Blood, dark and viscous, spattered across the ground. 2 targets on the left, engaging. He pivoted on his heel, swinging the blade in a wide arc. 2 more aliens fell before they could react, their bodies collapsing in a heap of flesh and metal. 3 targets behind, triangulating. Another sharp movement and SCIFI spun, pulling a plasma pistol from his hip and firing 3 consecutive shots. each one hitting its mark with pinpoint accuracy. 3 aliens fell, and their heads exploded into glowing embers. The battle was fierce, but to Sin, it was clinical. Every movement, every strike was calculated to perfection. His AI was in full control, optimizing every second of the fight. There was no wasted energy, no hesitation. Just the cold, efficient elimination of threats. Part 3: The Whisper. But then, something happened. As he stood over the bodies of the fallen aliens, a faint voice so soft it was almost imperceptible whispered in his mind. Samuel. The name was foreign, distant. It was not part of his AI programming. It did not belong in the mission parameters. And yet, it tugged at something deep within him, something buried beneath the layers of code and combat algorithms. Sin hesitated for the first time. No threat was detected. Proceed with the mission. The AI overrode his hesitation, pushing him forward. But the whisper lingered like an echo from a life he no longer remembered. For a brief moment he felt something. It was not the cold detachment of the machine, but something warmer and more human. A flicker of memory, a life before the mission. He shook his head, trying to suppress the sensation, but it wouldn't go away. Samuel. Ignore. But he couldn't. His name reverberated through his mind, and with it came flashes of something he couldn't fully understand. Faces, voices, laughter. A child's laughter. What was this? Before he could dwell on it, a sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath him, and a new wave of aliens surged forward. They were larger and more heavily armored, and their weapons glowed with a dangerous intensity. Sin snapped back into action, his AI flooding his mind with new strategies and calculations. Part 4: Brutality of the Enemy. These aliens were different. Their movements were faster, more precise, and their coordination was flawless. They communicated without words, their combat styles adapting to his every move. For the first time in years, Sin found himself pushed to his limits. He parried a blow from an alien warhammer, the force of the impact nearly knocking him off balance. His cybernetic arm absorbed most of the shock, but the alien pressed the attack, swinging again with blinding speed. Sin ducked, driving his plasma blade into the creature's abdomen and twisting it. The alien howled in pain, but even as it died, it tried to grab him, its red eyes burning with hatred. The next alien came at him with a plasma rifle, firing rapid bursts of energy that crackled through the air. Sin dodged and returned fire, his shots clean and precise, but the alien managed to sidestep one of them and close the distance. Its clawed hands lashed out, grabbing Sin by the throat. For a brief moment, he was overwhelmed by the alien's sheer strength. His AI calculated multiple escape routes, but none seemed fast enough. Then, the whisper came again. Samuel. And with it came a surge of something new. A feeling he hadn't experienced in years: rage. But it wasn't the cold, calculated rage of the AI. This was different, human, raw and visceral. With a snarl, Sin grabbed the alien by the arm, using its own momentum to throw it to the ground. He leaped on top of it, driving his plasma blade into its chest again and again until it stopped moving. For a moment, he stood over the body, panting. His AI processed the kill, but he couldn't shake the feeling in his chest. It was wrong. It was all wrong. Was this what he was? Just a killer? Part 5: Conflict Within. The battle continued around him, but Sin felt detached, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. His AI urged him forward, but something human pulled him back. For the first time, he questioned the mission. What was the point of all this? Why was he here, slaughtering these aliens? Were they truly the enemy, or were they just like him, pawns in a war they didn't fully understand? He knelt down beside one of the fallen aliens, studying its face. It was grotesque by human standards, with elongated features and thick, leathery skin. But in death, its expression looked almost peaceful. At that moment, Sin felt something he hadn't felt in years: remorse. The AI tried to override it, flooding his mind with cold logic. These aliens were a threat. They had to be eliminated, but the whisper wouldn't leave him. Samuel. His human side was waking up, and with it came emotions he hadn't felt in so long, emotions he didn't know how to handle. Was he still human, or was he just a weapon? Part 6: A New Purpose. As the battle reached its climax, Sin fought with a newfound sense of purpose. He wasn't just following orders anymore. He wasn't just a machine. He was Samuel Nelson, and he was starting to remember what it meant to be human. The aliens came at him in waves, but he fought with a balance of cold efficiency and human passion. For the first time, he hesitated to kill, choosing instead to incapacitate when possible. His AI struggled to understand this change in tactics, but he didn't care. He was more than just a weapon. And as the last alien fell, he stood amidst the carnage, the whisper in his mind growing louder. Samuel, you are more than this. With a heavy breath, Sin deactivated his plasma blade and looked out across the battlefield. He had won the battle, but the war within himself was just beginning. End of Episode 1.